Welcome back to the Chatooine Show, everyone. We're normally here on Wednesday nights, but tonight you have a special double episode whammy back to back of Chatooine. We normally do these Wednesday nights talking about Star Wars, but starting today, we're going to cover Rings of Power, myself and Lunga, for the next couple weeks, maybe like a month and a half, however long it goes on for. We got a lot to get to with this series, and we had a three-episode premiere. So I'm Star Wars only. That's Lunga. Special double 2 night in a row episode. Hope you guys love extra
Two nights
Chatooine
in a
content.
row.
Yeah, I
And
know this.
we're live on TikTok. Hey, TikTok. We're live on TikTok. How about that? I'm bringing a Chatooine show to my TikTok just for the hell of it. I was bored. I'm like, oh, I'll put it on my TikTok. What the hell? Why not?
Yeah, shout out to all the kids out there on the ticks of the talks. That's the growing
For
audience
those that
now.
are confused, Star Wars Only does not have his cam on because he doesn't turn it on. I do. For the way he sounds and the way he called the kids and the TikToks, he is the young one here, not me. Just so y'all know. Okay.
Hey, my generation.
Mid-20s here. All right.
Yeah, I'm actually literally in the mid 20s now. I'm 25, which is so fucking scary thinking about being 30 in 5 years. Um, but yeah, it's funny too because my journey with Star Wars started out on like Instagram. Before that, Facebook was the big thing for social media. After Instagram, it became Twitter. Now it's becoming TikTok. I'm so and YouTube's a big part of it too. YouTube kind of came throughout all
Yeah.
of that in a different platform, but TikTok is now like one of the biggest social media platforms, and they're all copying it. So it's
Yeah.
crazy how different things are and how many different fandoms you have. You have fandom on YouTube, you have a fandom on Twitter, you have a fandom on Facebook, you have a fandom on TikTok, Instagram, and they're all just like slightly different from each other. Even like Reddit has its own big, massive following of Star Wars fans only on that platform. So we're coming to all of them, baby. Like we've said before, Chatooine's not here to take part. We're here to take over, and that's what we're doing. So if you're watching this live on any of these platforms, you're listening to it later on Spotify or anything on podcasts, leave us a like, help us out. If you're new
Mhm.
here, subscribe to the channel to see future episodes of us covering the Rings of Power Season 2. If you follow us on all the socials in the description below, including TikTok, including Twitter, including Instagram, Discord, we're everywhere. Where aren't we?
Yeah.
We don't have a MySpace, I
Now,
don't think.
I know. And now it's happening again. My mic volume, it's only low when we go live. The whole time we were talking, it was fine. I don't know what is going on with this stuff. This is
Yeah,
driving me
we've been
batty.
having technical difficulties. Even behind the scenes, there's stuff about my audio input that I'm just kind of like, what the hell? Why is it not working out so well? But let us know in the chat if I sound okay and if Lunga sounds okay. This is a little special chat to we do. But yeah, yet again, your Lunga volume, your volume Lunga.
Yeah, but it makes no sense. Like when we were here, sitting here before we went live, testing it, looking at it, it was peaking just fine in OBS. I hit go live, and this happens. And I'm gonna set this, and I'm gonna be sitting here fucking yelling the whole time so people can hear me. This is
And it's funny too because on my end, your audio does sound a little. It sounded weird when I joined, but I also know like I'm using different Bluetooth earbuds and everything we hear in on like the background for how we run the show. I know is not accurate on how they hear it throughout the actual YouTube live
yeah.
stream. So
I'm gonna
like on
close
my end,
wavelength
it sounded a
again
little
real
weird,
quick,
but
just in case I won't hear you for a second. But here we go.
no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead. Go ahead. While he's messing with that, like I said, we're covering Rings of Power. So season one came out. I can't remember exactly when, but this was a big deal because Amazon got the rights from the Tolkien estate,
Hmm.
and it was not cheap. It was not cheap at all. And so
No,
they spent a
no, no. It
billion
was
dollars on that
quite
first season. So I don't know
quite
how much.
expensive.
Do you know how much they spent on the second one?
No, I didn't look it up. Do you know?
I'm trying to.
I didn't look it up.
Let's see. Season two budget.
Oh, and while you're looking that up too, this happened while we were waiting to go live. Gus Nevin did send us a super chat while we were waiting to start the stream. I'll catch up on the replay. I'm sure it'll be a banger while he's in here talking right now. That's okay. All right, Gus.
He's gonna
But no,
tune out
thank you so
eventually.
much, Gus. Yeah, he will. It's much appreciated. Thank you guys so much, and everyone else that's popping in as well. Thank you guys so much.
So it's saying like through Wikipedia and some stuff that the budget for this is still extremely high. That they're saying like basically the series is costing $1 billion. And this season, the range is 100 million to 150 million per season of Rings of Power that they're doing. So I think that $1 billion is just like you said last night on our episode about how like some of that is just to get the rights to this. I'm sure they spent money on like pre-production, casting, marketing, and all the stuff that has gone into the series because you can say visually it does look good. The costumes are good and some of the sets and everything like you can tell they put a lot of money into the show.
Oh yeah.
um, so with season one though, because that came out yet again, I can't remember when it came out. I think it wasn't last year, it was like 2 years ago, September 1st of 2022. So yeah, about 2 years ago, to the day. When you heard about this show and seeing season one and everything, like what was your reaction? Because we're both big Tolkien fans, and one of the ways me and you became friends through online and everything like that was talking about Lord of the Rings, Tolkien stuff, and Star Wars and everything
Yeah.
like that. We have a love for these kind of series. So take us back with you and your journey with Rings of Power 2 years ago.
Um, I was writing for um Twinfinite back then. That's when I was a entertainment writer for Twinfinite, and I did a review for Rings of Power about it. There's a whole article about it for me that I did. I thought it was horrible. I I couldn't fucking stand it. That's how bad it was, and it was for a lot of the similar reasons in the Acolyte. It was just like the writing was so bad, and the way they were going with the story, and it's like, but it had like a split, just like when we saw Chimere and other stuff. We're like, this is really good, and then we get this shit. So, oh my god, this is really fucking bad. That's what I felt with Rings of Power, because like anything involving Durin and the dwarves was fucking great. Okay. And just what they were doing with Elrond, and the way he was, and especially Galadriel, the way they were doing her, I wasn't happy with. And there was, her husband's nowhere to be seen. Okay. And like not even mentioned that he like even exists, let alone because in the books they do separate for a little while. They not separate like their relationship, but they're in different areas, taking care of business basically. Um, but they don't even like acknowledge his existence. And then they have her falling in love with Halbrand, which was like it feels like the whole OSHA and Chimera thing. It's like, do we need this?
It was definitely weird and not after now seeing season two, it doesn't feel like it was really
Yeah.
relevant to these characters
No.
or needed.
No. I mean, but they're trying to, but and again, we'll get into this when we talk about season 2, but they mention, oh, you can't be the one to talk to him because he has this hold over you now because of what he did. And it's like, that's all you had to do. She didn't have to fall in love with him. It's that. That's the reason why. It's built in. It's built in there. It's gonna happen to It's already happening to Celebrimbor. Is he falling in love with him too? No. It's the deceiver's hold over you that he has. Why they had to add this weird sexual tension, I felt was just unnecessary.
Well, and I do have a question about when it comes to Sauron in Rings of Power season one because I'm me and you both seem to be on the same page with it, where it just wasn't very good, and it is kind of like the Acolyte in a way, where it's like you spent a lot of money on this, but the writing was kind of weak. Um, the big reveal, the big twist for season one was Halbrand was Sauron, and the guy you
Yeah.
thought was Sauron throughout the entire show with the Harfoots turns out to be an Istari, one of the five wizards. So, what was your
Yeah.
reaction to those reveals when that happened?
Just like Chimere, I knew Hillebrand was Sauron. That
Yeah,
wasn't a surprise to
yeah.
me. But I'm not gonna say they did a bad job in hiding it. It's like, no, it's okay. Not everyone has the same level of sussing out what's happening in a show. But I think they did that well to like tease it and kind of like give you a little bit of misdirection that you think, this is Starry is actually gonna be Sauron. Um so they did that well, but it was predictable. Now everyone keeps talking and because he looks like him and he talks like him. In last season and even this season, that it seems like it's Gandalf. I still don't know who he is. I have a feeling that that's a misdirect, and it could just theory. I could be completely fucking wrong. It could actually be Sauron instead of Gandalf.
I'm actually on the same page with you on that because I really think that if they did the Gandalf route, um, I get to the same conversation about things where you start to water things down a little bit, and I do think
Yeah,
that's a conversation
and
around the
and they
series
did
itself.
tease a little thing because of when Polly, that's her name, was asking why can't he just use his belt, and she's like, oh, he doesn't have his Gand, which a staff or whatever they're calling it, a
Yeah,
Gand,
yeah,
which Gandalf, it's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The name will come to you when I tell you what your name
Right.
is,
And
and
it
then
was
you'll
during when they
know.
were talking about that. Right after that
Yeah.
discussion, it was like, oh, he doesn't have his Gand.
Well, I hope it's Sauron like you. I really don't want to touch the Blue Wizards with some of this
Sauron.
stuff. Oh yeah, Saruman. Yeah. It's also stupid that they did that Sauron and Saruman. Come on, Tolkien, you can be a little more creative. But anywho, I do feel like if they reveal it to be Saruman, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. He was like the first wizard to come in and everything. We have another wizard seemingly in season 2 that we can talk about in a little bit. But with the Blue Wizards,
Well,
there's so
there's
much
two
mystery around
actually.
them. Do what?
There's like two. There's in one of the in the at the end of the episode one issue that like trailer for the whole kind of season deal, like what's coming.
Yeah.
And you see this guy talking to the Gandalf one, saying, "Oh, I can show you." So and that one looks like Radagast to me. Zach actually brings up Radagast. That one looks like it could be Radagast. Then there's this dark wizard, the one who's sending out these acolytes to go. Funny
Yeah.
that's in here too. Acolytes, who's sending out these acolytes to go after him. I don't know who he is yet. I don't know what they're working with him,
I don't
but
want him to be a blue wizard because my thing with the blue wizards is
they
that
do go.
um
Supposedly, the again, Tolkien didn't say a lot about it, but they say they went to Zood, which is where they're at. That area, and they disappear, and
started
the
cults of magic.
right. So
But
I
there's
believe
mixed
he's one of
reporting too
those.
because he also did say that they did succeed in their mission in stopping the spread of Sauron in the east. As well, so it was like two kind of conflicting reports. You just kind of need to execute it in a unique way, but just by let's look at the dark wizard that they have in season 2 that we saw who sacrificed the one chick to bring the other chick back or whatever,
Yeah.
his little acolytes. Even just the look of him, I'm like, okay, you can't. I don't want him to be one of the Astari because there's a certain look that they had, even in the Peter Jackson versions of them. All three of the wizards that you see, that I feel like needs to have some continuity to it. And you can see that with the mystery one, that it's kind of building into that form. And it's funny because I feel like scene by scene and episode to episode, season by season, at this point, you kind of see him slowly become one of those older guy wizards that you're used to. This one with like the black beard and mixed with the gray, he doesn't look like. I would prefer it if he was revealed to be just like a faker or something like that, like some guy who thinks he's a wizard. Or what do they call Sauron in The Hobbit? Like a necromancer or something like that when he is in a I think it's Dol Guldur is where he's hiding out at, and they're like,
I
oh,
don't
he's like
remember.
a necromancer or something like that, some enchantress person. So hopefully that's the reveal they do with this wizard guy because the Astari they're a big deal to me, and specifically the Blue Wizards. I like the mystery around them and what they ended up doing, and I understand that at least in Tolkien's work, when it comes to what happened to the story as time went on, Gandalf's the only one who really succeeded his journey and was, allowed to go back to Valinor. The other four didn't. But I do feel like someone like Radagast did end up helping in the War for the Ring and for good. And the Blue Wizards, I think, should have kind of a similar story, even though they didn't succeed the way they were supposed to. They
Hmm.
succeeded in some way of helping out. I think them being another dark wizard or something like that would kind of take away uh,
The,
from what the
yeah,
Astari I
no, I
think
mean
should be.
no, because that was kind of the hintings of possibility in Tolkien's writings that they could have done, like they started these cults of magic and stuff, and they some of them might have fallen off, and that's why they had to send Gandalf and Sauron. You know what I mean? So it's a very hazy area because Tolkien didn't give us a lot. You know what I
Well,
mean?
what we do kind
So
of know, at least canonically, I think, is that Saruman was the first to land. Then the
yeah,
two blue wizards came together, and Saruman took them to the east. So all three of them kind of went out on a journey. Saruman came back
right,
and then
right.
worked with Gandalf. Right. So it's that's where the
But who
timeline
came
does get
first in
important.
that? Considering we don't have, like I said, that doesn't bother me that much. Because considering we don't have blue mages really, much at all, and these are just kind of his offshoot writings. They're not like in the book, what I mean.
Yeah.
Like that kind of deal. Changing, who came first, I don't think is that big of a deal, because we all we know is they're called blue mages. That's all we know, and they went to the east and they supposedly succeeded in their mission, but then they might have done this, and these were all off of his like letters and stuff like that to people and shit like that.
Yeah,
So we
people would
don't.
ask him questions about stuff
Right.
like this, and he would reply, or he would write notes on future stories
Yeah.
and everything like that to give us more context. But after seeing season one, did you have any excitement at all for season two? Because from my own side of this, I didn't. I was kind of done after season one. I mean, we're doing season two
Yeah.
partly for the show and everything like that. But I do think if we weren't doing this on Chatooine, I would watch it. I do think that there's some appeal to this series, but I was kind of checked out after season one. Did you feel the same as someone who didn't like it?
Oh, I wasn't looking forward to this at all. I wasn't looking forward to this at all. I'm like, there's no way. But here's the thing. Here's the cool thing that I'm starting to learn. Surprisingly, you would think I would have known this earlier. A number one, HBO seems to do banger after banger after banger. Okay, even their
Hmm.
stuff that's not a banger, like Watchmen, wasn't that great, and then they didn't even continue it, but it was okay. You know, I wasn't super happy with it, but it was okay. But they at least seem to know they need get the right writers, or at least the right you know showrunners, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? To where they seem to know what they're doing. There's very little course correction that HBO needs to do with their shows. Um, this it feels to me like a course correction, because I got to tell you guys, so far for me, 3 episodes in, it's a banger so far. I have very little
Certified
complaints.
banger.
I have very little complaints with this. There's a little bit in the third episode, but other than that, I have very little complaints with it. And it proves to my point again, to where it's like, as long as everything else is bad, the complaints become nitpicky, but they don't take away from my overall enjoyment because the show is doing a good job. And Lucasfilm, unless they come out the gates with the banger, like Mando season one, and kind of to extend season two, and Andor, you know what I mean? Unless they come out the gate with something that's like, wow, they double down on the bullshit. You know what I mean? So this kind of plays into this whole thing we were talking about with Acolyte season two. It's like, I have very little faith that they would have course corrected. But Rings of Power, they did it, yo.
And
They
it's
they
different than
got
like the
to the
Bad Batch, where
story.
like the Bad Batch was the same thing every season, and there was no course correction or listening to any of the critics. It does seem like with Rings of Power season two, the writers, I remember one of the things that annoyed me is that they seemed like upset that anyone would criticize
Yeah,
the writing and how the show was done, but just the pacing of this season is already a lot better than season one, because I rewatched season one like a week or two ago in preparation for season two, and apparently a lot of people have also been doing this as well. So there is a vested interest from, I would say, casual audiences, and maybe not the entire world, into this series. And so after watching season one of the things I noticed is I was like, man, like they have a lot of characters in there, but they tend to do it in every episode where you're
yeah.
splitting up between like seven different plot lines you have to follow. With this season, so far in these first 3 episodes, like Isildur is not introduced until episode three, which I think kind of works as well because it does give you that wonder of like, oh wait, is he actually like dead? You know, and he's not. It turns out, but you pace out these story arcs, and do what we say that the Acolyte should have done for a long time is you let it breathe. Okay, like the first
God,
episode, a
I'm so
lot of that
afraid
is
of
just
that.
about
Let it
Sauron.
breathe. Let it
Let it breathe.
breathe.
Yeah, yeah. And if you didn't let it breathe after 8 episodes, you need to wait for a second season to really let it breathe. And maybe
Oh
that's the
yeah.
problem with Rings of Power. Maybe Rings of Power needed a little bit of breath in it. But I do feel like the way they've made the second season is a lot better just writing, because even the opening scene, and I told you before we started that like I rewatched
Hmm.
that because I kind of was like, oh, this is like from the start, I was like, this is actually pretty fucking cool. Like Sauron, I didn't know it was Sauron at first. I thought it was a fake guy when he was sitting there like giving a speech to all the orcs at the beginning and being like, "Oh,
Yeah,
you
no, because it
Morgoth
was a
is gone. You need to
flashback.
follow." It was a flashback, and they did that in a
Yeah.
unique way where I didn't know. The only thing I didn't like about that is when the orcs did kill him, is he became like a venom like goo. I thought that was a little where the corniness comes in for me, where I was like,
Yeah,
that's really how you
yeah,
gotta
there's a little
explain it.
artistic interpretation there for it. I mean, I
Yeah.
like the way he died. I like how he blasts into that light and
Yes, yes,
throws
yes.
everything.
That
That
makes
was
sense.
cool.
That makes sense, and it turns that into. And I didn't realize that when they opened it, the opening shot, it had the name of where they were at because it's like in the northern area of Middle Earth, and so it makes sense now after seeing season one, like why it was so cold,
Yeah,
up there, and
because
it
that's where they
makes
went, where that symbol was, where they put
uh-huh,
the
and
dagger or
it's stuff
whatever it
like this
was. That
that
yeah,
it kind of makes season one a little better, but it also annoys me a little bit more too because when I look back at seasons two opening compared to season one, season two is a lot better. And season one, well, season one they did the stuff with the elves and all that and their little history, and even that was kind of a little is that right? But they
it was
really
okay,
start
but
with
it
the
was just it was
character.
a little slow.
It was a little slow and it didn't really focus on it definitely was not as good as like how the Fellowship of the Ring opened up and it gave you that context of history and you see the battles and stuff.
Mm,
It seems it really gave you a starting point with everything. This series didn't do it so much, but with season two showing you how Sauron became Halbrand, basically, I think it did give you a strong start where you have a vested
yeah,
interest going in. Whereas with season one, not only did you have the flashback, but they really opened up with Galadriel and her team looking for Sauron, and then they find this place, and then her team turns on her, and everything. It just felt kind of like we're in the middle of a story instead of the beginning of it. Whereas this, it felt like we're actually at the beginning of things.
yeah, and
Um,
they utilized and it was an entire episode, pretty much. Okay, they utilized the flashback well. You know what I
yes.
mean? Again, I hate we're a Star Wars channel, okay, but I hate bringing up the comparisons with the Acolyte. But it's like you see how you used it well. You know what I mean? It worked. It gave us the context of everything that went on with him. It gave us even more history that honestly, if they left out, it wouldn't have hurt the story. You know, about him coming and first talking to the orcs, and I
Well,
think that was more of an origin story for Adar and how he became father.
well,
You
yeah,
know,
and
they're
it gives you closure with him saying that he's the one who killed Sauron, and there
yeah,
was a vested
right.
interest in that. But it would be different and more like the Acolyte, and making it worse if they had just throughout the entire season one, or maybe now this season two, Galadriel being like, "Well, how did you survive? I heard you were killed. How did you survive?" And
Yep.
Sauron keeps teasing like, "Oh well, I was betrayed by my own kind, but that's a story for another day." And then literally being like, "You know what? It's time to tell you." And then the episode ends, and then you're like episode
Yeah.
seven out of an eight-episode series, and you get the flashback of him getting killed by Adar. Pacing, timing, editing, all that does matter. And this season does feel like a course correction because three episodes in, I am more excited for the rest of the season than I was at this point last time we were doing this 2 years ago
Yeah.
with season one of Rings of Power. Because Sauron actually seems a lot more interesting to me because I know who the hell he is, and there's not this, oh, I wonder who Sauron could be. Even the wizard guy, the mystery around him, the Harfoots, I could not stand in season one. With season two, with them just kind of being along for the ride with him, I enjoy them a little more. I still hate them and hope that they had died
Yeah.
in that
I
tornado.
mean, someone mentioned it about the Harfoots. Yeah, they're still they were one of my least favorite things of the first season as well. I really hated the Harfoots, and I hated them mostly because not because of them. I hated them because the writers basically wanted to make carbon copies of not just hobbits, but carbon copies of Sam and Frodo, just
Yeah.
female. And it's like, why don't you make them different? Why don't you make? I mean, I know, oh, they're different because they're like nomads and they travel around. They have to keep traveling because they're actually the progenitors, the hobbits. Okay, cool, whatever. But the characters, she is literally Frodo and Polly is literally Sam. She even talks like Sam.
Yeah, I can't stand their accents.
Just make them different. Why did they have to be Oh, because you know why? Because they wanted the normies who watch the movies to feel something familiar. That's why they
They
did
wanted
it.
the member.
Remember, Barry. So look, remember Sam and Frodo? Well, here we go. There's Sam and Frodo, but now they don't. Now they have something different between the
Nori and
rings.
Patty, or whatever
Um,
the hell their names are.
yeah, and it's like I said, they could have been okay if they just wrote them different, but they didn't. They just made them carbon copies, which to me is lazy. It's lazy, and now for this one, you see they did it in the season 2. They used them in a better way. Okay, they're traveling with him now, right? Okay,
Hmm.
so it's a little different from Lord of the Rings where Gandalf sends them off. This time they're going with Gandalf to help him find himself. You know what I mean? So I kind of like
Yeah.
that little cool thing. I also like that their song wasn't a song; it was actually the map of how to get where they've been going.
Sorry.
And I like that little addition. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, I
And
didn't
I
like
think
the
that worked
song
out okay.
itself when they were singing it in
No,
season
yeah,
one, but yes, it did make it better in season two when you get a little bit of a full circle with that. We're like, oh, it's a map actually. We just got to follow it. It's like, all right, I'll buy it. I can take that. It makes sense. And I think the journey that they've gone on with him in this season, and the fact that he's talking, is so much better. Because in season one, it was kind of insufferable for him to be like, friend, foe. And you're just like, oh my god, he's like a grown man, but he's a fucking toddler. Like, it was just
yeah.
unappealing. So now that
With
he's talking and everything, and you see his own
ridiculous
dilemma,
powers, like using way more magic than Gandalf ever used in Lord of the
that's
Rings.
another
Like
thing too that kind of annoys me a
they're supposed
little
to have
bit
a
with the
soft
series.
magic system.
Yeah, is you magic should be handled in an appropriate way. It's kind of like with Star Wars, where like certain aspects of the Force, like the world between worlds, that needs to really mean something. This would be a significant thing. So sometimes it seems like they're overdoing the magical
Well,
stuff at the moment.
I think there's a
But
reason for that because he doesn't know how to control it. That's the whole point.
yeah,
That when he
and I can
becomes
see that too.
Gandalf, then it's reserved. It's rarely used. It's not something he uses all the time. This guy doesn't know what to do, and he's using it willy nilly. Even though he says I can't because I'm going to hurt people. You know what I mean? But every time he tries to use it, it screws up. Which I think is their way of explaining. Well, why didn't Gandalf use his magic more in Lord of the Rings? You know what I mean? Because it's not something you're supposed to use like that all the time. It's dangerous, if you
Yeah,
will.
well, and
You know what I mean?
I imagine it does take a toll on him and everything like that. And even seeing Sauron in the series, like he doesn't use a lot of magic throughout his
No,
journey.
the only
Really,
thing
he
you
does
saw
at
is when they
times, but he
killed him.
does.
Is when they killed his old self in that flashback sequence. You saw him use a little bit of his strength.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, the strength he was using was the strength you saw in that battle scene with the elves in Lord of the Rings, where he was, like with Ilsador and them,
Oh
where he
yeah,
was like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
tossing
When he was
like
hitting them and they were just
front
flying
lines,
like
like
little
entire
flies.
front lines of the armies with one blow, and like knocking
Yeah,
out like 12 people at
that
once.
was fucking gangster. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
how you reveal the magic and the power that some of these people have.
yeah, and I
But
liked
it's
how they
different
did
if
that.
Gandalf's doing it.
Right, right.
My,
But
my,
again, I'm even though I'm with you on they may be overdoing the magic, but I think that's the point. They're overdoing the magic to show you that's why you're not supposed to use the magic. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think that might be thematically a good thing that they're doing with that. We're kind of bouncing around here and stuff, but Galadriel, okay, the character. I mean, even though the show is an ensemble and there's so many main characters, right? But let's be honest, we know who it's supposed to kind of center on. It's
Be the
supposed to
center
center
focus.
on Galadriel. And again, this is a course correction. This feels like a course correction to me. And this is not a gloating, yeah, they're giving it to her. No. But do you notice that girl boss in season 1 can do no wrong, right? Season 2, everyone's like hating on her. They're like, you fucked up.
Well, no, I mean to be
Okay,
fair
you
though,
fucked
they
up,
hated her in season one too because
but for a different
they were
reason.
for different reasons. But like I'm almost annoyed with her arc with like the High King being like, "Oh, so Sauron was right here and you didn't." It's like, yo, he was standing in front of you too, brother. All right, and if I was a gladiator, I'd be like, hang on. You didn't even think he was around. All right, I'm the only one saying that he's been
Yeah.
alive for a good while now and hunting him. Now that he's back, you're all mad at me because I was right this whole time. Yeah, sorry, he was right there. Didn't realize he was so fucking handsome.
Well,
Excuse
she was
me.
saying Sauron's back. He's saying you brought Sauron to our doorstep and said He's just a dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So
Like you
that's the
got
difference with that.
fooled hard, sweetheart.
Yeah.
No, I do agree. I do like this. I do like the change with her in this season. I like how it's not so focused on. I just honestly, I think we talked about this. I don't
She
know if we said it
feels
on the
more like
stream or before.
Gladriel from the original,
A
how
little bit,
Gladriel
yeah.
was.
I'm just not a. I was not a fan of her at all in season one, and even now, like the whole. I get she like talks and whispers and like the Lord of the Rings thing, but there's like a deepness to her voice where it still travels through. This the way they're doing it with this series is just like when she talks, she's just like, "I must find Sauron before Elrond destroys the
Oh,
rings,"
but
and it's
they
just
all whisper.
constant.
That's the Elvish thing. That's a Peter Jackson thing.
No, they don't all whisper. They don't
Yeah,
all
man,
whisper.
that's a Peter
It just
Jackson thing. Stop it.
no, Elrond
It
and
is.
the he has a deep booming voice in Lord of the Rings. He's like,
That's
"You must
because
take
it's
the ring
fucking.
into the heart of Mordor."
That's because it's Hugo Weaving. That's Hugo Weaving. You know how he has to talk. Yes,
Who else?
that's how
Okay,
he
so
talks.
all right. I'll
Okay,
concede that maybe yes, the women elves do whisper because Arwen definitely was like, "You have the
Arwen,
power of foresight. You can tell
and
me,
even
my
Celeborn.
son."
Celeborn was very soft spoken.
Yeah, but
He didn't have a lot
he
of
doesn't
lines,
whisper
but he
though.
was
He
very
doesn't
soft
whisper
spoken.
though. There's a
And
difference
I keep
between.
forgetting his name. Boss, the Elven general that came to them at Helm's Deep. Um, what's
Oh,
his
I don't
fucking
know his
name?
name either. I can't
But he was
remember.
boss. But he was,
Alendir, is that his name?
Elendil
Uh,
is Isildur's father.
Oh, because I thought Aragorn shouted that out in like
Maybe
one of the
something
movies
similar.
where he charges. He's like
I forgot his name.
Alendir. But yeah, I know you're talking about where he dies in Helm's Deep and gets stabbed, and he sees all the
Yeah.
elf guys around him and everything, and he's like, "Elves shall fight side by side with men once more." And it's such a beautiful fucking moment. Hope we get
Yeah.
something like that with the because that's another thing we were missing from season one is there was no good
Well,
battles.
I mean, they tried to do it and by the way, that's his name, Arandir, the elf, who's
Ah,
supposed to
thank
be
you.
Arandir. They tried to do that in the third episode, which was a little slow for me, with between him and Ilsidor. They tried to do that camaraderie with them too.
Mhm.
I saw you there, and I thought I'd be because I liked everything, kind of dealing with Numenor and Ilsidor in season one, but so far for this one, I'm bored with him in that third episode. Now it could just be the third episode because
Yeah.
he's recovering from everything that happened. He thinks his father abandoned him there, and he's kind of wandering and doesn't know what to do. He's stuck in Middle Earth, and so maybe that's the reason why. But so his stuff, I think everything that has to do with, can we call them the small folk? We'll call them the small folk, the Southlanders. Okay,
Oh, they're all
everything to
dead
do
though, I
with these.
thought.
Well, you have the one lady that Ilster's talking with, whose husband or she's looking for, whatever. Her husband's out there somewhere.
And she's really
You
a
have her.
servant of Sauron
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Adar.
You have her, and Arandir's woman. She's dead. Okay, but the kid's still there. You know what I mean? And everything involving them was just so boring to me in season one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I was so tired of them. And then now we finished this battle, and now it's the aftermath, and we're back with a couple of them, and it's like I, I don't care. Can we move on to
Yeah, they,
Arondir and Ilsidur or something, doing something cool? Please,
well,
let them do
even
something
the
cool.
Numenorian stuff, like going back to that in episode three, that and the Southland stuff, for me that well in the Harfoots, there's a lot of weak parts of the series from season one, but like everything with the Numenorians by this point, I'm also kind of just like, can we not do this anymore? I just don't feel any vested
But
interest
theirs
in
is a
it.
political no, but theirs is a political thing, which we saw at the end of the episode, setting up as how Farazan becomes king. Okay,
Yeah,
and that is important. And everything that was going on with these Southlanders and going over there, this was all kind of machinations by Farazan. You know what I mean? So it's him trying to position himself in power. So what we saw at the end of episode three with him was the culmination of everything that was going on through season one and
no, yeah,
up
no,
until now.
I get it. I understand that aspect. I just don't care about it because part of it is that some of these places they do feel like the way they've done Mordor and they turn the Southlands into Mordor and all that stuff, or even
Mhm.
Khazad-dûm when you visit that, those places feel like they have a lot of depth and personality to it, and
Oh,
exploration to it. I don't feel that with Numenor at all. I don't like the way it feels like it's always in the same. It's kind of like the Acolyte, where it's like, is it the same room every time? Like, are you guys going to the same spots constantly? Like, I just I don't know, man. I'm not feeling it with the Numenor stuff. It feels a little corny to me. Every time we deal with their situation and everything with the queen and all that stuff, I just want to move on from it. I just want to move.
no,
Same
I
with the kid and his
that's
mother and
exciting
the
to me.
elf.
Her being blinded and looking for the Palantir, that was so cool. I really like Elendil, but they kind of he's there, but they kind of sidelined him so far in that episode. He's not doing too much except kind of being her eyes for her, I guess,
Yeah,
and
I
mourning
do
that
like him
you
too.
know Ilsidor's that he doesn't know what happened to Ilsidor. Uh, but I'm liking the political intrigue in Numenor. I liked it all, and the thing with the Palantir and the eagle showing up, and them, wanting, all siding with Farazan. I like that. I thought that was cool. And I just like the visuals. Anytime we're in Numenor, I like it. It's just it. I like the way everything looks. I like the way people talk. That scene when they're in the restaurant and that noble's kid is being all fucking haughty toddy, and that fucking soldier was about to fucking kick his ass because he was talking shit about the queen. I like that scene. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Anything in Numenor, I think I liked. The way they were all getting angry at her, dude. That scene when she's when 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 that woman comes up and slaps her, and she just says, "Who did you lose?" She says, "My son," and she just hugs her and starts crying. The understanding she tries to have for her people, and even at her coronation, which still went to shit for her, unfortunately. I'm really enjoying that. I think they did a great job with that, and I'm really happy with that. I'm not sure. I don't know how you didn't like that. It's a banger, bro. That part's a banger.
Yeah, just like the Acolyte, Oh, this episode is great. Certified banger, a lot of emotions. 4 out of 10.
No, not for me. Again, the third episode was the weakest of the three for me so far, but it was mostly because of Ilsador and Arondir. Most of their parts in that third episode, and the kid, and trying to, bring your sword and come with me in the ambush, and all this. It was just like it was boring. Even Ilsador fighting baby
Shelob.
Sheila, yeah, baby Shelob, was kind of eh. I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
is, and did those like everything with their effects and everything in the show was beautiful, but did that feel weird? It didn't look right. It looked kind of strange.
It looked like they built the set and then added a lot of CG for a lot of like the finer details for things like the eggs hatching and the hand or the legs coming out for the spider and stuff like that. Even the I'm sure like the orc was practical, but I think a lot of the other stuff was just kind of CGI'd in. So there are parts of the series where you can tell, yeah, they spent a lot of money on it, but it doesn't have the same kind of artistic feeling to like even it's one of
Overall,
the
it's
beauty of
still
the Peter.
good. I mean, it's still
Yeah, no,
really
for sure, for sure. But there is a difference when you see Gandalf riding up to Gondor than you did with the East guy.
again. I know they spent a lot of money, but this was a movie, man. This was a movie that was shot on such a grand scale, and what they're doing with this is so close for a TV show that I got to give it props, dude. I'm sorry.
I'll give it
It's
props, but I'm gonna call a spade a
there.
spade. It
I
has its
can't I
good
can't
moments and
name
bad.
many TV shows that have come close to the grandeur that these have shown so far for TV shows. I mean, can you really name many that have
I
shown so
mean,
much?
Game of Thrones did it best. I feel like it lost its steam as time went on, but with the even without the
Close,
same budget. Well, they
but
made Game of Thrones. They made King's Landing genuinely feel like a real place. Like you
yes,
could in your
and I
mind
think, but
always
that's
have
because
like a
we're there. It's
layout of
because they're
King's
there
Landing.
so much. Because they're there so much. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not only being there; it's how you lay it out. Where like even when they're in the Red Keep, Cersei goes from room to room to room, and Tyrion
Yeah,
and all that stuff. You
Goldman's
get a
argument.
mental layout of it.
Goldman's argument about some of this, the acolytes, some of the stuff. It's like they're always in the same room. Like the scenery never changes. It's like always the same over and over again. And at least with that in Game of Thrones, and I say even in Rings of Power, they move around. They show a lot of different areas, a lot of different scenery, a lot of different places, in
Yeah,
buildings.
and one thing I will give this season more credit for is I do feel like they explored the world better because they do a lot of transitions on the map and into these locations and establishing shots. It
Which was
does give you a different
they
feeling.
ripped one thing off of Game of Thrones. They're like, we're using the map. Let's use the map.
Yeah, but it
It
does
works.
enhance it and it does make it a lot better. I want to talk about the dwarves and all that stuff and what's going on
Mhm.
with Durin and everything. But before we talk about that, because it does tie into it, I want to talk a little bit about the actual rings of power themselves.
Yeah.
This decision of the elves to wear these rings, even though Elrond's saying that it's probably trapped by Sauron. Sauron going to Celebrimbor, convincing him to make seven more rings for the dwarves, nine for the men, and one ring to rule them all, as we know. One ring to bind them, and the darkness, fine, whatever the fuck. Um, is that it
Yeah,
itself? I mean, it's not
our
gold.
me and Marie's wedding rings. It's hard to see on the cam, but it's got the
Yeah.
Elvish inscription. We our wedding rings are based off of the One Ring.
There you fucking go, because it's such a perfect ring. It truly is. Um, what did you think about that aspect of this series so far, especially with these first three episodes, showing Sauron and Celebrimbor working together
Oh,
to
they're
make
weaving
these
it so
rings?
well because I was disappointed, right? Because again, I'll be honest. Even though I've read Lord of the Rings and I've read a lot of lore, I have not fully read the Silmarillion just because it's a history book. It's like reading the Bible. And if anyone's tried to read it, and I've tried to do audio, it's like the parts. If anyone the parts of the Bible where they list the names, son of this, son of that, son of this, begat that, begat
Yeah,
this, begat that. It's like they do that
that's
in
the
this, and I'm like,
Silmarillion.
oh my god, yeah. And I'm like, this is like, and you know how like we were just joking around about the names. The names are like that too. They're very similar too.
Yeah, it's
From one
annoying.
to the next. Yeah, and it's like,
Sauron, Saruman. Like,
yeah.
okay.
And especially with the elves, those names all flow together, man. I don't know who the fuck's who
Hmm.
anymore. But so it's very hard. As much as Lord of the Rings is a hard read for a lot of people, don't even try to Silmarillion if you can't read Lord of the Rings. Holy shit, it's hard. But I've researched, I've looked stuff up, I've tried to watch videos and other things on it just because I'm like I can't read this, so let me get the gist of it. You know what I mean? Um, I was kind of upset, but I knew Celebrimbor was the whole Forging of Rings was Anator, which we saw Halbrand Sauron become Anator, the Lord of Gifts. Um, they were the ones that crafted the rings, right? He deceived Celebrimbor and made the rings. So when I'm watching, I'm like, well, they made these the Elvish rings, and it was Halbrand, it wasn't Anator, and it just felt something off. You know what I mean? And he was more like deceiving Galadriel than he was Celebrimbor. So I'm like, where are they going with this? But then again, I don't know if it's course correction, if this was the plan all along. He comes into it afterwards when they make to convince him to make the dwarven rings and the rings of men. And the way you were talking about the dwarves, but oh no, you said rings of power. Yeah, so the way they did it all, it's like it was beautiful. So Celebrimbor decides to make it on his own. He makes it technically without Sauron's influence, which it still was. Because if we kind of saw, because in the first season didn't he hold the mithril too?
Sorry.
Didn't Halbrand hold the mithril when he when he
Um,
when he
he he he threw it in this time when they were doing the seven.
yeah
He didn't do it in the season one, but he's the one who, excuse me, he's the one who kind of planned everything and put that
yeah
thing in his mind to the mithril. And then he was also the one to be like, hey, we don't need to force it together. We need to melt it and all that stuff. So that's
yeah,
the one thing I
and
haven't
maybe
liked
that's how
personally
they're
is that.
explaining why the Elvish rings, why Sauron couldn't control the elves. You know what I mean? Uh, uh,
It seems like he would have had more impact on the seven that the doors are made. Like even when he dropped it
yeah,
in,
because
you could
he
hear
took it
voices.
from he took the mithril. Yeah, and he took the mithril from him. Wait, no, and he took it from him,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
held it and closed
Well,
his eyes
and
because he was
also,
putting
mind you,
his
too, is that the
dark
three
energy
elven
into it.
ones. Yeah, well, and the three elven ones were made by melting Galadriel's
Right.
dagger that her brother gave to her, and that
His
came
brother.
from Valinor itself. And they say
Right.
nothing is perfect unless it's made in Valinor. So I think
Right.
that keeps kind of the corruption out of the three for the elves. But I think the fact that they don't have that same material for the seven dwarf ones, and it's just mithril, that's what changes it a little bit. But the only thing I don't like about this whole Celebrimbor and Sauron thing is I do feel like, and mind you, I'm not the most like you. I'm not the most familiar with the making of these rings all so much, or even specifically character like Celebrimbor. But I remember playing him in like Shadow of Mordor and War of Mordor, or whatever the hell. Those were pretty solid games. The way they did Celebrimbor in that was kind of like this guy who was a little strong on his own and everything, and like a real artist. And yeah, he was deceived, but it felt like he had more power than he does in this show. Where this show in this series, Celebrimbor is supposed to be like the greatest Elven Smith artist ever, and he just kind of seems like an idiot. Like he's just constantly like, "Oh,
No,
we should be doing that. We should
no.
be doing
Where are you getting
this."
that? Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. First of
Everything
all,
that they have done is because
he
of
is
Sauron, basically.
Lord of Eregion. Okay, he still runs Eregion. That's his
Yeah.
place. Okay, so he runs it. He's Lord of it, or I don't think they call him King, but he's it's his place. Okay, um, and they've shown his craftsmanship just from what he did. The other things he was making it, and the frustration is one is that he felt like he was making trinkets. He wasn't making like you know true art. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. Um, and then when he made, I mean, he made those rings, which was a fantastic. And then you see that thing he made, that stone that had the mithril in it that gave it with the moonlight that glows. You know what I mean? So you see the artistry that he has. Do you expect them to see them making like golden jewel silver pawn shop? Like just have shit
No,
everywhere.
no, I just wish that like at any time of significance he was the one to be like, no, this is how we should do it, like because I did this many years ago. Because almost at every turn, he's like, well, dang, how are we gonna solve this equation? And Sauron's like, well, you could technically do it like this, and the Celebrimbor's like, my God, he's a genius. That's right. That's what we need to do.
But that's
That's
how.
what we're
But
gonna
see, you
do.
said you don't know. You didn't read. But again, from my understanding of the Silmarillion, that's how it was. Anator, he's called the Lord of Gifts for a reason. They didn't make that up for
No.
the show. It because he gifted Celebrimbor this knowledge. He gifted him this extra oomph to make these things. So yeah, he did inspire Celebrimbor. He did give him all these these extra gifts to be able to do these things. So it does make sense. And the whole point of him being the deceiver is how he is so expertly, and I'm loving the way he is just worming his way into everything, because that's how Sauron during this period, that's how it was. It wasn't force. It wasn't through sheer force. It was through manipulation and deception that he did everything to get him. And then once he had all the rings, then it's like bam, war, and I'm taking y'all over. Because I'm going to be able to control everybody. You know what I mean? Um, so the way I think they're having him, just kind of, you know, worm his way into the good graces everywhere. I think they're doing it so well, and I really enjoyed that. I don't know. You're seeing it as they're making Celebrimbor weak. It's not. It's showing how of a master manipulator Sauron is, because that's his
I don't
power
know.
during this time
If he
period.
was doing it with the High King because of how strong of a presence the High King has had throughout both seasons, I would be like, okay, yes, this is beautifully done. How Sauron is like becoming a whisper in his ear. This really seems to me like Sauron has just kind of hijacked Celebrimbor's
But
show,
he
and
doesn't
it's
do it
just
with the High
been
King. He doesn't do it with Gilgalad. He does it with Celebrimbor with the rings. He does it to Numenor with the Palantir.
yeah, I know.
That's
I mean, we
how
haven't
he
seen
does
that
it.
yet, so I can't judge that one. But I was just saying with Celebrimbor, I wish they would have a better explanation of things of like instead of at every turn he's like, "Oh, what do we do? It's impossible to melt these two metals together. The mithril is just too strong." And Sauron's like, "Well, how about we
Well,
melt
you're
it?"
talking about
And he's
season
like,
one
"Oh,
though.
that's a
That's
great
not
idea."
season. You're talking about season one though.
Okay, but even with season two, I mean, I liked how he came in and like showed him he's this like Valar guy and all that stuff, and does kind of convince him of stuff. Um, but specifically with him
You
like
got to remember,
taking the mithril
his
from his
gift
hand and then
was
dropping it
making these
in.
things of beauty, not rings of power. These are magically imbued items that do more than just glow and and are
Yeah,
pretty and and
I
and
know, but even with that, like they just put the fucking rings on and everything's happy go lucky. Well, I was like, all right, that's cool.
it's the
Because
magic of it.
yeah, but I would like to kind of know the distinction between the rings and their power as well, because I know that they keep the magic and everything. And then one thing I am excited to see with this is when when Sauron does make the One Ring, and I think that they're gonna try to do their fucking damnedest to make that look beautiful. The realization that the three elves who are wearing the rings have that, oh my god, we have been deceived, and they immediately take off the rings and all that stuff. Just
Yeah,
because the
and I don't think
series
it's
is
gonna,
of
and I don't think that's gonna be this season because we ended
no,
at
no.
because how many episodes is it? Nine? Is it nine for the season?
I thought it was 12.
Is it 12?
Hang on, let me check
Because yeah,
our
look it up.
Chatooine
Because at the end
schedule.
of this, they were just forging the dwarven rings.
Yeah. This is
That
gonna
pouring
run
that we
to
saw, the
okay, yeah,
forge that was
there's
making the
eight
dwarven
episodes.
rings.
My mistake. So
Eight.
this
Okay.
runs up until like October 1st or something. Or no,
Well, no,
October
no,
10th or
we're
ninth.
getting
I don't know.
three. We're getting three now. We're probably gonna get three next week. That's how Amazon does things. Just remember the boys.
They're not doing 3 next week. There's no way.
That's what they did with the boys.
They're,
They did three, but well, the boys were they weren't a week apart. They were longer, weren't they? No, but they
no,
did
the
do. They
boys was
dropped three,
every
three.
the boys was every week and they did an episode every week. I think they dropped with 3 episodes and then a week after that. But no, they're definitely doing one episode a piece for this. I would be shocked if they did episodes 5 or 4,
Or maybe
5 and
I'm
6
thinking
next week.
Invincible because Invincible came out like that. They dropped three,
Well,
three,
no, but
then took a
Invincible fucked
break,
up
and
because
then
they dropped with like 2 episodes. They did 1, 2, and then they did a half season break, and they came back and did 1, 1, 1 finale. It was fucking ridiculous.
but at any rate, yeah. So yeah, and then we're probably gonna see them forging which that's what I'm looking forward to because remember the rings for men that's they become the Nazgul, and
Yeah,
one of them is the Witch King of Agmar.
I
So
heard he's a badass motherfucker.
no man can kill him. I am no
He's like
man.
he's like quiet old man. This is my hour. And he
Which
pulls out the thing.
let's. I want to again. I know we're digressing back to the movies. Everyone loved that line. Okay, when she did that and she killed the Witch King, everyone loved it, right? If
I
that
am
came
no
out
man.
today, if that came out today, oh my god, the bitching people would be doing
The riots
about
in the
her.
street, but it is different too because in the context of that those movies, first of all, it's a sausage fest, those original movies. But second of all, not every movie had a female scene like that. Like if that movie had came out the same month that Avengers Endgame came out, where they had that scene where like um, all the girls come together and like, come on,
Yeah,
girls, let's go get them. It's so fucking corny because you can see stuff like that and you're like, okay, God, it's the preachy
because it's
stuff.
corny because it feels because they're making that movie and they're like okay we had to have a scene where the girls all come together and we
They
had
actively say
and
that too. They
right
actively say that's why
right
they did it.
right
It's
what I know
ridiculous.
with Peter Jackson and this it happened organically.
And
You
it
know,
was powerful
it
because
was
of
more.
that too, of
It
her
wasn't of
saying.
oh this woman needs a scene. No, it was like this character needs her moment.
And it's a badass line
And
too for him to be
yeah
like, "You fool, I can't be killed by a man." And she's like, "Well,
yeah
motherfucker, I'm not a man, bro. All right, I got
exactly
you." Like no matter what, it's like, "Damn, bro, that was badass."
yeah.
So hopefully they do get something like that because this series does need a like oh my god moment, and it hasn't had that yet because you got that. I mean, the Fellowship. I mean, the movies we like we said, it's hard to do those again and get those moments. But even with the Fellowship of the Ring, there were a couple great moments where you're just like, wow, that fucking hit. Get off,
There
and he's like,
wasn't.
fly, you fools, and all that shit.
That was a
You didn't
death
get
though.
those either.
That was a
That is
death.
true. That was a death. That was a death. But even well, I
There
was about
was
to
no
say
moment.
Boromir
I
was
mean,
another
the
death.
closest badassery you could say was him. You shall not pass. Poof, I
Yeah,
mean that.
that was
Uh,
iconic as fuck. I mean, we need something like that too. But I don't think I think they're gonna have a moment like that, but I don't know if it's gonna happen in season 2 either. I think they're gonna build up to
But
something
again, this is
major.
the thing we have to remember. This isn't about war. This isn't about these big epic battles I mean, we had one in season one that they tried to get the orcs. I mean, we're gonna have the confrontation with Adar and his orcs, right? They're gonna have that. It's leading up to another
Oh
one of
yeah,
those.
yeah.
So we're gonna have that, and Adar's gonna obviously die, and there's gonna be a moment where Sauron takes control of his orcs again, because he's doing his whole thing with the elves, but he's also his other plot is I'm getting that fucker. 'Cause I didn't forget. I know what you
Oh
did to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm coming back, bro. You stabbed me with my own fucking crown.
Right.
You think that's a
I'm
joke?
fucking
It's like
Sauron, motherfucker. You know, King
it's
Kong ain't
badass.
got shit on me.
It's like I don't know if you've ever seen that movie with Will Ferrell and Zach Galifianakis, The Campaign, where
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
like,
I
you get
love
my
that.
son to call you daddy, I fuck your wife. He's like,
Yeah.
that's the deal. He's like, that is the deal. He's like, what are you looking at? Book of bad ideas? He's like, book of good ideas. He's like, page one says, get son, call you daddy. Flip it over, page two, boom, I fuck your wife. That's what
Which he did.
Sauron's doing to Adar. He's like, oh, you take my
Yeah.
kingdom, guess what? Your orc son, I'm gonna kill his whole fucking family. I don't care, and then I'm gonna rule everybody. I am
There's people
excited to see
picking
stuff
on
like that come out.
Did you see the little touching moment with the orc and his wife and his kid?
I did not.
And
Funny enough, I saw a picture of it on Twitter. I must have zoned out through that part of it.
really,
Yeah, you
that
could
was in the
tell
third
me.
episode. That's when he was talking to
Oh,
Adar, and he's like, is Sauron really dead? Do we really? He's like,
oh, I
like
do
you said
remember
he's
that. I
dead.
just don't remember his family being there.
Yeah,
So
he
there was
said
like a woman and a
he's like, you
baby
said he's
orc.
dead. Why do we have to worry about it? And he's like, trust me, we have to make sure he's dead. And then as he walks away from him, he turns and there's his wife holding the baby, and he hugs her. She's holding the baby
I
orc.
didn't know there was women orcs. I didn't know they were
Yeah,
birthed naturally. I thought these things were just like created out of the ground
they
at some
were. There's
point.
actually a whole thing in Tolkien's letters about that there were.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, and clearly, I think we're getting the Entwives too with the trees at the end of episode 3. That's a flip
Again,
my table
according to the
moment.
lore, well, yeah, no, they would have been around because the lore, because this would be a long time. But
Well, not
yeah,
only
I
that
think
too,
they're
but there's such a mystery of what happened to them that even Tolkien was like, I don't know what did happen to the
the
Entwives. I
mystery
think
is they
that
just lost each other. They went different ways, and that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Then that
That's
and that would make the what I think the great revelation would be is like a typical woman and man thing is like the Entwives are like, hey guys, we're going west. All right, so go meet us there. And the other the Ent
unless
men
we
or
draw
trees or
them a
whatever are like,
map.
well, yeah, they're like, all right, they said they're heading north, so let's all go north. And it's like we lost them. It's like no, you didn't listen to
They didn't
directions, you
stop and
fucking
ask for
idiots.
directions. You never stop and ask for
Yeah, yeah,
directions.
yeah, yeah.
What?
I'm not asking an oak tree for directions. What do you think I am? Timber? Like, no. But I don't want the mystery like the Entwives to be spoiled or something like that. And I think stuff like that needs to remain a mystery. But I know they're going to touch on it
Yeah,
to give it a little bit of context. But I wanted to talk about the dwarves too, the stuff with Durin and everything.
great,
Remind me, why
spectacular.
are him and his dad fighting again? I mean, they had an argument. I don't really
Yeah,
remember it
it
from
was a
season
whole
one.
fight about he was mining the mithril behind his back because he was
Oh
to give
yeah,
it to
yeah, yeah.
Elrond.
But what did he say that was unforgivable?
I forgot the exact line, but it was
Mm.
something. But they were arguing about that because then when he was mining, remember an accident happened and someone died. One of the
Yeah.
dwarves died, and then
Well, I
they
don't
just
think
got in the
any of them
whole
died. I think they all almost died, and they like were
almost died. Yeah,
locked
yeah,
away for like
yeah.
a couple days.
Right. I forgot the line now, or what he said so much. But again, they're both hard-headed, stubborn assholes. So either way, they're gonna get father son. It's gonna happen. Um, so I don't that's not. I mean, I can look it up and find out again later, but that doesn't matter to me as much. I just know what
Yeah, no.
happened, and that was their. And they were just stubborn, and neither of them would say I'm sorry. Um, but I really love Disa. I think she's great. She's doing her character is such a good addition to this, and she's this nice counterbalance to Durin. She's that voice of reason, you know, when he's hard headed, and you could see that she's not, which people love to complain in these things. The people who hate the woke shit about how look they got to make the man look stupid all the time, where she doesn't. She always tries to respect him, and she always tries to prop him up. You're better than this. You know what the right thing to do is. You're being stubborn. You're being hard headed.
Hmm.
Make the right choice, and I know you can. She's very supportive, but at the same time, is strong in her own right as the stone singers, they're called, right? Or stone singers or what?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there was when they were singing though, and the mountain and it didn't work. I for a moment I had a flashback to the power of many. I'm like, no, no, please don't go there, don't go there.
I did find it a little corny myself. I was a little bit like, okay, I get it. All right, you go, you sing Queens, you do your thing.
Yeah,
Um, but the dwarf stuff I
but
thought was pretty good. I don't love Disa
oh,
as
it's so
much as
good.
you do. I think she's fine. I think she's a good partner for Derwin. I think their relationship and their dynamic is it's good to see couples like that on screen, like an actual healthy fucking relationship. It's not all throwing kitchen
Right.
utensils at each other and everything like that. But even seeing Duran and his dad talk at the end and whatnot, I like his dad, the king. I think that what they did with the dwarves in this series is they've handled the dwarves best out of anybody, out of the elves, out of the men, out of the Valinor, whatever the
Oh
hell.
yeah,
They've
they've
handled
done
those the
him so
best.
good, dude. When Duran finally apologizes, I'm sorry, and his father just looks at him and he goes, "You look like shit."
Yeah, yeah,
Basically,
yeah, yeah. I love that because it's so and it's such a
it's such a
these
dad moment. That's
macho
something
men.
that
Yeah, where he's just like, all right, I just wanted to hear you say it. I'm not really
yeah,
mad. Let's move on, you piece
yeah,
of shit. Um,
right.
it's fucking beautiful. But yeah, no, I like the Doors and what they've done with them. Do you with the Casa Doom thing, and they
Mhm.
call it Durin's Bane. The
Yeah.
what do they call those things?
Well, the Balrog is
Balrogs.
called
Yeah,
Durin. Yeah,
that
is
doesn't
Durin's
happen
Bane.
so many ages from now, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Be-
Yeah,
because it happens after the
because
Hobbit. Because I
yeah, because
remember,
it happens after the Hobbit.
yeah, the two one of the two of the dwarves from that journey
Right,
were
because
at
they're all
Casa Doom when
Durin.
it
There's
happened.
Durin,
There's many of
Durin.
Durin's, yeah,
It's
but
like
but
it's
I
like
always thought
Henry in
Durin's
England.
Bane was off of him. Yeah, there's lots.
No,
Henry the
no,
Eighth.
it was
That's a
off of
popular one. What
some
about the other
Durin.
fucking seven? Like it's ridiculous. It's like no Aegon, and Aegon, and don't forget Aegon in fucking
Well, the problem with
Game of
them is they'll
Thrones.
have fucking 4 or 5 Aegons at the same time. That's the problem
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have.
He's like, remember Aegon's dream, Rhaenyra
Which
or
Aegon?
Alicent? It's like you're talking about my son Aegon, her son Aegon, Aegon the Conqueror, or his bastard son
Yeah.
Aegon. I don't know if you saw
No.
the visions, Dad, but there's also a guy named Aegon. So you really
Right.
gotta specify here who
Right.
you're talking
And
about.
even the hedge knight, the knight of the Seven Kingdoms that's coming out, it's literally another Aegon. It's Duncan Egg. It's another Aegon.
Oh yeah, like what the fuck is going on here? Like no one looks alike in these goddamn shows, but everyone's got the same fucking name. It's ridiculous. Um, but with
And
Rings
George
of
R. R. Martin
Power,
did say he did it on purpose because of the way the English monarchs work. 'Cause remember, his whole thing's based. A lot of it's mostly based off of the War of the Roses and the shit like that was going on during in
yeah,
England.
but you know what the
And
difference between those stories
they're
are
all
and his
Henry and
stories are,
William.
Lunga? Well, those stories are finished because they're actually history, and the stories we can concluded. I would love for him to finish his fucking story at long last. I mean,
I know, I know, I know. I agree with you.
Tolkien did the smart thing, and he detailed a history down to the last tree, where he was like, "Oh, and the acorn from the south was made on this day on Rendy Book or something." Where you had such a detailing account for everything that happened, and George, it's just like, I wrote this book, but it could all be fake. You got to think from Maester's perspective. What do they know about the North? So it's like, why am I reading it then, George? What does it even
There,
mean? All right, like,
there's
come
some
on, brother.
parallels. Have you noticed some parallels in his cadence and his voice with George Lucas?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yes. It's beyond hysterical that they both talk the same. You're never really gonna get the ending stories
Both
from them. They're
George.
both kind of yeah, and it's funny because they're both Georges. They both have the glasses. They're both kind of have a little bit of a talk like this and all that. But George has a lighter voice than George.
Yeah.
George has a deeper voice than George. It's so fucking bad. If only J.R.R. Tolkien was named George R.R. Tolkien, this would have been the greatest fucking thing.
The fucking
God
trifecta.
damn it. Oh, I fucking
But
hate it.
but yeah, the dwarves. Everything with them, everything about them is just great, and just the visuals, in Casa Doom. is great. How when that earthquake happened and all the sun shafts shut,
Well, and I love how they
and
did the sun shafts. That shot
yeah,
where you see how they're laid out and
doof,
everything,
doof,
I actually
doof,
thought
doof.
was pretty fucking cool. It's
Yeah.
stuff like that where I'm like, okay, this series, mainly this season, season two, has some highlighted moments where you're like, wow, this does look beautiful. This is better than last season. And I have to say, it was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah.
First three episodes, like, I am I'm enjoying it a lot more than I really thought I would. It's not as much as I hoped it would be because when they announced the series and I saw season one and we were talking leading up to that excitement and everything, like just oh my god, it's like I can't believe I'm getting a Lord of the Rings live action show. Um, but season one was very much so like, damn, I can't believe they've kind of dropped the ball. Season two, though, so far has made me go, okay, yeah, this is kind of how I guess I would expect a Rings of
Jeff
Power show to
Jeff
be like.
Bezos is looking over at Iger, and he's talking to his people after season one. He's like, "Okay, listen, I'm not having any of that shit."
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. No.
Okay,
No.
I spent way too much. I know they spent $4 billion to $4 billion in Star Wars. I spent a shit ton of billions for this. Don't do that. We got one shot
Yeah.
at
No.
this.
Fix
Okay.
your shit, okay? I'm not doubling down on your crap. All right. You better get back to the drawing board. Why don't you watch some critics and maybe take a couple notes on what to do for season two? Um, yeah, I don't know if this was the smartest thing for Amazon in the world to do a Rings of Power thing. Um, I think the money they did was right for it, but I do feel like I don't know who could have been a different runner for this. I don't even know who the showrunners are for this series, but I do feel like there are some things that I wish would have been improved upon. But
Yeah, I
like I
mean, we
said,
all get that.
season
I mean,
two is
people felt
better
that
so
way after
far.
the movies. I know we love them, but man, listen, the Tolkien fanatics, it was just like the prequels with Star Wars. The Tolkien fanatics, when the movies came out, they're like, "Fuck this movie."
Oh
They were
yeah,
not
yeah,
happy.
I
No,
remember.
Tom
I mean,
Bombadil, fucking Arwen. What are you doing with her? No, fuck this shit. This is
yeah,
garbage.
but they were not only masterfully done, they did bring a sense of this world, and though it is Peter Jackson's take on that world, it felt extremely
And
grounded, where it's a place you could go. Where I don't feel that so much with this
yeah,
series.
yeah, everything was so much practical, which is what the Hobbit suffered. There was so much CGI in the Hobbit. It was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
horrible, you know.
And I've
But there was
always
so much
wondered what
practical.
Guillermo del Toro's version of The Hobbit would have looked
Would have
like,
been.
truly, because he's a great
Yeah.
filmmaker. So it is curious why that really didn't work out. But the thing with The Hobbit is that they just truly did not give Peter Jackson enough time. They were like, no, you get
Right.
like they didn't even delay the release date. I don't think he just even in the appendices that they made for it, where he was just like, there were times where I literally would tell the crew to take five so I could sit there and think about the script
Yeah.
while they were making it. Like, that's
Yeah.
bad, bro. That's really bad. So it does go to show that when you get someone like a Peter Jackson type and you give him the budget and the time and everything, like what made those movies so good, I think, was the pre-development. It was the years of spending on let's get these sets built, let's build these
That
armor for these
that
orcs and all
that
that.
was perfect. And the cast. The cast was just
They
perfect
knocked
from
it out of the
top
park.
to bottom, man. That
All
between
of those
that
actors are
between the
immortalized
sets,
because of that.
the cast, and the score, it just magic. It just came together.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. And it's stuff like that that I do think we're missing in this generation of content, and I think we get glimpses of it with shows like Game of Thrones, where you're like, oh my god, it can be done. It can be done again. This is
yeah.
something that, but you gotta stick the landing, bro. You gotta
Yeah.
stick the landing, and they didn't. And so I'm curious with this series, Rings of Power. A, how many seasons it's gonna run for? Have they said how many seasons it's gonna be? Do you know?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they have either, but I'm curious if they do a long series, like if this is going to wrap up at season four or if this is going to wrap up at like season seven or eight. But either way, I do wonder how much better this show can get as time goes on because of how much this is going to cost to make. But
Mm.
also, if they can wrap this up in a way where people like you and me can look back on this fondly in 10 years, as opposed to like The Acolyte, where it's like, oh, yeah, you remember that shitty show, The Acolyte? It'd be nice to look back on this and be like, God dang, you remember those banger moments from Rings of Power? It'd be
Yeah.
fucking fond memories. Let me look up real quick before we wrap this up how many seasons they're going to be doing. How many seasons? Okay, well, they just say there's one season. I'm aware of that. Uh, the showrunner J.D. Payne told Empire that the show was intended to last for 5 seasons. We even know what our final shot of the last episode is going to be. Well, I mean, the good news is they seem to have a plan, so we're getting this for
Yeah.
5 seasons. So hey, there we go. 5 more.
That's
We're
yeah.
gonna be here
That's
for
a
a
lot.
couple
That's
years
a
covering
lot.
this. In today's world, it is. It
Yeah.
really is. There's not a lot of series that go on for
I
that
mean,
long.
it's
I
a
mean,
lot to say from the get go. This is what we're planning. I mean, that's
but I
it's
like that.
usually
I like.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
It's
no,
usually that kind of
I
shit.
need a game plan going, and that's why that German
Yeah.
show I love to praise about Dark worked so well because they knew from the start. No, this is going to be 3 seasons. This is exactly how each season is going to work out. We have everything planned, written, and let's just fucking go. I
Mhm.
hope they did the same thing with Rings of Power, but I hope they do what they did last season with this season and now season 3 that'll come out in a couple years as they
Right.
go, all right, let's listen to what we did wrong and let's kind of fix some things because it has made season 2 better. So yay or nay on season 2, the first 3 episodes so far.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great. I'll give all three of them combined an 8.
Yeah.
Episode 1 was a 9. But yeah,
Mm,
I'll give them all three combined like an
maybe
8.
maybe it was a 9. I'd have to rewatch it again, but yeah, no, I think I'm on the same boat where all 3 episodes combined are an 8 because I do think they could have been a 9, but I think episode 3 kind of lost a little bit of its momentum, and there's just some aspects of the show that I'm just not all that invested in. But overall, yeah, no, season 2 has been a lot better so far. So if
Yeah.
you, I
And
don't know why you'd be
I'm
watching this if you
surprised
haven't seen
because
it,
of
but
everything else over the last few years. This one, season 1, I'm like, every week was like, fuck this show.
oh yeah, yeah, I
Fuck this
remember.
show, man. I'm like, oh my God. Like I said, I was ready for Twinfin. I read a whole article about why this show sucks. I mean, it's just like, it's bad. It was bad. I'm like, and people are like, oh God. And it was like I felt that people are just so blinded by the visuals, that
Yeah.
it looks so beautiful. It's so great. Yes, it gets A+ for that. Lipstick on a pig. It I don't care how beautiful it is. If the story's not there, the story's not fucking there. Okay? Goes back to The Last Jedi. Fucking beautiful movie. Okay? Beautiful fucking movie. Wonderfully shot. The visuals are spectacular. Story, not so much. So, it's.
Wait, there was a
But yeah.
story in The Last Jedi?
Yeah, there was. Ask Goldman. He'll tell you.
Oh, I remember Goldman. Oh man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long, long time.
I don't know if anyone
Well,
watching has noticed Star Wars Only's Avatar mouth moves when he talks because I've been silently giggling to myself the entire stream because I keep looking at you when you're talking.
I just love how the
Oh,
eyebrows are constantly
yeah.
going up every time he speaks or I speak. And I hope you guys know, don't be disappointed if you ever unfortunately meet me in real life. I don't look this handsome as I do in the image. But yo, I do think I should be rocking that little kind of Han Solo attire anywhere I go now. That's not a bad look for me. Um, but yeah, that's about all we got for Rings of Power.
Yeah,
Thanks for tuning in on this odd episode for us doing this on a Thursday night. But
yeah. And we're going
while
to be
this
doing
series
this
goes on,
on Thursdays. Yeah, we'll
yeah,
be doing these on
at
Thursdays for
least
this.
until if I remember correctly, like August 10th or something like that. Like up until the series, is over, and then after that, we'll see because there's not much going on in the world of content after this series
Hmm.
wraps up. So we're gonna see what we can do Star Wars wise and other shows and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you guys are into the Rings of Power season 2, if you've watched this episode, come back next Tuesday night, or my bad, Thursday night, next Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern time. As usual, we'll be doing Chatooine, but this time over there in Little Middle Earth. So thank you to all the channel members, Grievous Reborn, Tom, Katie Miller, Gus, Leor, and my boy and your boy, that cloney boy. And thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Chatooine Show. Leave us a like. We'll see you next week for another banger episode of Rings of Power Season 2. Do I say may the force be with you always, or is there something Middle Earth adjacent that is similar? Fly, you fools.
You shall not
Oh,
pass.
fuck. Oh, my friends, you bow to no one. Yeah. Yeah. We'll
That'll
see you
work.
next
All
week,
right.
guys.
See you
All
guys
hail
next time.
Sauron.
And my end button's now.
Wow.